You have to have purpose outside work. Whatever you do for a living doesn't define you. You've got to have a passion, a purpose outside work. You've got to have a reason to finish work. So whether that be your family, whether it be the gym that you're going to afterwards, the walk with your mate, I think it's really important to actually have something outside work that you love.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Few, where we take a bit of a deep dive on those people who are living their true purpose, doing the things they want to do, and redefining success in their own definition. Hey, Shawnee, how are you, mate?
Great, Boo.
How's the weather up on the Sunshine Coast?
Mate, as they say, beautiful one day, perfect the next.
Yeah, definitely not what it looks like outside the window here as we roll into the endless winter that is summer in New South Wales. Look, super excited today. I think we're going to learn a little bit more about what it is to be human, and maybe some of the things that we do that we don't realise that we're doing that aren't allowing us to be the best versions of ourselves, or the best versions of our teams, or the best version of our... Not the best virgin, that's not what I mean. The best version of everything that we can be. So, look, with no further ado, I really want to welcome Natalie Waters on the show today. G'day, Natalie. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to chat with Sean and myself.
Hey, guys. How you going?
Really good. Thanks for coming on.
Very well. And as we said before, you're just down the road from Sean. Both of you living the dream up where probably half of Australia is moving since COVID.
I know. It's such a beautiful part of the world. We're blessed. We're very lucky.
Yeah, the property market's definitely feeling that trend of people moving north for sure. So.
Yeah, actually it is. It's all the southerners that is driving the price of the property, isn't it?
Absolutely.
God damn southerners. Oh, gosh, what is it about southerners?
Well, I was one 2 years ago. I came from
always
Sydney.
The ones from the south that cause all the trouble.
Sydney, a year around Australia, and then I don't want to live in Sydney anymore. Let's go north. So thankfully it was pre-COVID. Yeah. It was BC before COVID. So it was
actually, and this is actually, sorry, speaking of COVID, I've got my wipes here getting excited. This is actually an interesting segue. We were having a chat before, Natalie, wondering where you came from. Yeah. And looking at different careers and the different streams that people, the life of adventure that some people embark upon. Where did you start life as a child?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I actually grew up on the Mornington Peninsula, Mount Isa. So
you blew my theory completely out of the water.
Really?
Here I was saying to Sean, I'm a Queenslander. Queenslanders, that's where all the adventurous people come from. That's why Nat's out there all over the world. It's all and Victoria. There we go. Okay, yep. So that theory's blown out of the water. Sorry. So Mornington Peninsula.
Mornington Peninsula, yeah, and it was I guess from there went up to the Whitsundays. So I guess I migrated up to the Whitsundays, ended up working on the islands up there on Hayman. From there, ran a sea kayak.
Hayman Island. You're the second person we've podcasted today that worked on Hayman Island.
Yep.
No, really?
Yep, absolutely. We just had Andrew McLeod on earlier, and he said that washing dishes on Hayman Island was the best job he ever had.
I can believe that. I can believe that for sure. Yep.
So what was that about? So here you are, Mornington. Were you just sick of the cold weather? You decided to go up and up where the sun shines a little bit more?
Look, I think I was just looking for an adventure. I think that was probably, when you put it that way, that was my first adventure that I went on. Moving away from I guess where you know it, somewhere totally different, and from there started sea kayaking and started everything sort of outdoorsy adventure, and I guess it's all grown from there.
Was that something that was in your blood though? Like in when you were a kid growing up, were you an adventurous type? Were you a quiet type? Were you gregarious? Did you have a kind of vision for your life, or did you just sort of have how would you define your childhood?
Mum and Dad, I was one of three, the eldest of three, and I guess Mum and Dad always encouraged us to get out there and try something new. So always trying something different, trying something we hadn't done before. So, for me, it was not being afraid of when an opportunity comes up to say, why not? Just go for it, as opposed to, I haven't done that before. So, Mum and Dad, I guess, were a real driver for us 3 kids to just keep doing things you haven't done before, because that's how you're going to grow. So, I guess taking the plunge, moving up to Queensland, working on an island was an adventure, but it wasn't such a scary one for me.
So then, for that journey, then you're up there, you're on the islands. It's a very beautiful place up there. We spent a month up in the Whitsundays when we were on our lap of Australia, because it was so amazing. And but how did you then move towards a career in law enforcement, and particularly one that was so special in such a specialised area of it?
Well, I guess it's my life. When I look at it on the twists and turns, I never knew where it was going to lead me. There's no way a girl from Mount Eliza could have, I guess, anticipated what I ended up doing, or some of the things along the way. And it was, for me, it's been a real journey. I guess from working on a Hayman, got into sea kayaking, went overseas, paddled in Canada and Mexico, and worked out that sea kayaking was quite big over there. Decided to come back in my early 20s and decided to start up a sea kayak business. So at that time, in the 80s, it was sea kayaking was in its infancy. So it was really taking a risk. It was doing something that hasn't been done before. I think there was a kayak company in Tassie, one in Sydney, and we ended up on the Sunshine Coast, had all cool different destinations that we paddled, Whitsundays, Fraser, New Zealand, Fiji. And from there, I guess it was just an opportunity after an opportunity. We put the sea kayak business on the market, and a big customs boat pulled up at the back of my shop. So from there was, I guess, the next chapter.
Was that by accident it pulled up, or was it there with intent?
No, it pulled up to refuel, and I had a great little shop. So it was right on the water. And so I just went down and had a chat to the guys, and at that stage they looked pretty cool in uniform, lots of guns. And I said to my partner at the time, who's my partner in life and partner in business, that's what I want to do.
That's a journey in itself.
Yeah. It's that probably didn't end as successful as many businesses, and that's a lesson in life itself, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. There's a lot to be said. There's some real boundaries that you need to set, and some a mutual understanding as to how that whole dynamic works.
And in our group, in the Inner Circle group, a lot of my clients nickname me the marriage counsellor, because it's that neutral party that sits in between them when they're running a business. So it can be very helpful, and you got to be careful you're not looking like you're taking sides. But it's definitely a treacherous waters to navigate, for sure. So
emotional versus logical decision making. Yeah. We've learned a lot about today. Now, a quick question with that. So here you are, fairly, obviously very adventurous, and going into a sea kayaking business. You're an entrepreneur. You don't really answer to anyone. You've got your own business, and now you're going to the other end of the spectrum, which is to go and explore working with the government. I mean, how did that? You like guns that much?
Yeah, well, I guess it is. You're right. It's the extremes of being your own boss, having flexibility, to all of a sudden having a mission, having outcomes, and completing the task, and saying that you'll do it even though you think that it might be in the face of danger or adversity. It's completing the mission. So we ended up. There was a brand new unit that was being advertised, actually. So after going down on the boat, absolutely blown away just by the coolness of it, and I came back and said, that's what I want to do. I just jumped on the website, actually, and they were recruiting for this brand new unit called SOMPRU, Southern Ocean Maritime Patrol and Response Unit. And it was a brand new unit that they were setting up to go down to the Southern Ocean for long periods of time, long deployments, for illegal fishing, legal import of narcotics. And I just went through the application. I just thought, hey, why not? Well, I don't know what they're looking for. I had no law enforcement background, but just threw my hat in the ring. And I guess, after lots of psychometric testing, it was probably about 2 or 3 months, ended up down in Canberra in a room full of 16 guys and myself. So I was the one that slipped through the cracks, for sure.
And I imagine, was it at that point in time, was that particular branch of the government still quite male dominated? Was it an environment that was Was it something that you felt comfortable in straight away? Was it gender equal? Was there anything about that environment or that particular role that was a challenge for you as a woman?
Yeah, lots of challenges. I'd be inhuman, if there wasn't. There was challenges for guys. I have to say there was lots of challenges for all of us going through that training. We were all told in that room in Canberra that we were official risk takers. That's what they were looking for in that psych test. In actually all those numerous psych testing, they were looking for people that were willing to take on risks, do a mission without knowing the outcome.
And how was that? How was being told that's what you are?
Yeah, that was pretty bizarre. It was all of us laughed. We just I guess being told that we're official risk takers, but the penny dropped for a lot of us because we looked around the room and there was there was prison wardens, there was ex-ADF, there was ex-regiment, there was a paramedic, and there was myself, the sea kite guide. I think I was one of probably two of us that didn't have any law enforcement background, which they didn't mind. They were just looking for people that obviously were happy to take risks and
comfortable in the water, obviously.
Yeah, and to go down, and I guess so. Our job was boarding party. First and foremost was to board vessels that were obviously incursions in the Southern Ocean, and to do boardings in really difficult situations, all different sea states. So look, the training was immense. There was another girl actually, but she unfortunately couldn't get through the training. But a couple of guys actually didn't get through the training. So I think in the end, there was about 15 of us that deployed on the first inaugural trip out of Hobart on the Aurora Australis, actually, which I just see is just been retired.
It's always cool seeing the Aurora Australis in alongside in Hobart. Yeah. I'm still trying to get my head around it. Sunshine Coast, all over the world. Kayaking, probably in very calm, beautiful, warm waters. Everyone's in their swimmers, bikinis on, boardies on, and head to toe now in immersion suits, running around, chasing illegal fishermen. It's such a random left and right field.
It is. It's totally. I get it. I agree with you totally. And sometimes I pinch myself just saying, how did I get here? It was. You're right. We were doing boardings in dry suits. So about 3 different layers. We had 20 kilo backpack on our backs. We had arm to the hilt. We had sidearms, long arms, trained on 50 cal machine guns, which we mounted to the vessel to provide covering fire. We were pretty highly qualified up on firearms to do the boardings, and
Is it that dangerous down there? I mean, what's going on?
I know what's happening in our waters.
Yeah.
Well, look, the Southern Ocean, because we were a government asset, we could be called to anything. So we had to be prepared to go away for 6, 8, 9, 10, 11 weeks at a time. They were the deployment times. If we were got into some intelligence that there was an incursion in Australian waters, we would go and apprehend that vessel. But obviously, if he did a runner, you were under hot pursuit. You could chase that vessel all the way to South America, which never happened on one of my deployments, but did actually happen on one of the ones down there. So you had to be prepared. And obviously, when you did a boarding, you had to be prepared to be on their ship for any long amount of time if everything went to crap.
And clearly, you would have seen some really.
You're allowed to swear on the show.
Yeah,
we've had a couple of guests here that have just a next level. So
yeah, we had an R-rated podcast a few podcasts ago, Patrick Kidd. But
we threw away the idea of not going down that route pretty early on. So what was that like in terms of managing life? Like you're away a long time. You're obviously in a confined space. There's probably not a lot going on but the long periods of boredom in between intense periods of activity. How did you find work-life balance and existing and your sense of self in that environment? And was that something that you saw as being a sustainable existence?
Yeah, look, you say a lot of downtime. There was a lot of downtime in between boardings, but we did lots of training down there as well. So, throwing the tenders in alongside our vessel, getting out in lots of different sea states and just throwing that ladder up and just boarding our vessel over and over again just to get the practice of just boarding vessels. So we did lots of weapons training, negotiation training. So we did lots on a moving platform, which was always tricky. And obviously battling a bit of seasickness, which just became the norm. You just felt constantly, I guess, just, at about 60%, but that was just the norm. You just had to get on with the job and just, deal with anything, how you felt.
Was the food okay? Or was it nothing to do with the food? The food was pretty good.
Yeah. Actually, the chefs were pretty good. There were days that we had to sit in the mess, throw the seatbelt on, and it was hard to eat, actually, just with the
not many people have dinner with a seatbelt on, are there?
No, not at all. No.
So one of those skills that you learned, as you said, it was trained about things like hostage negotiation and things like that. What did you learn? What were some of the keys you learnt in relation to human psychology and in relation to communication, the things that some of our listeners could potentially take and apply in their day-to-day roles as business owners, or whether they're an employee or whatever. But how do we? What did you learn there that was really, really valuable that you've been able to use since then as well?
Well, human behaviour is just understanding people, and it's learnt skills. Anyone can be a behavioural profiler. Anyone can really just understand people. It comes down to codes and patterns, and these codes and patterns are everywhere. It's a matter of you really identifying who you're speaking to. Once you can understand what their motivators are, what their core needs are, you can just adapt the way you communicate with them and create rapport with anyone. And that can play out in business, negotiating deals, remuneration packages. It can play out really well in teams, understanding your teammates, understanding their strengths. In leadership, it can really play out, in negotiating in sales. So it's, whether you're negotiating with a terrorist or negotiating with your 10-year-old, there's really
same thing. Yeah,
believe it or not, no difference.
That's really interesting, and it really does boil down to all of us exhibiting those kind of core traits as human beings.
It does, yeah. Codes and patterns. So it's understanding, it's being able to calibrate who you're chatting to. So I guess it's and self-awareness. So the average person, we communicate the way, organically, without even thinking about it, the way we like to be communicated with. So we don't think about anyone else most of the time. We just think about so if you're short and to the point, that's the way you communicate. So some people would take that as brash and arrogant, or but if you like to tell a long story as opposed to a short story, that would piss some people off because they just like the facts. So I guess it's knowing how you are, but then it's calibrating who you're chatting to. So it's really understanding, and then you can just rejig and just make a few changes on how you're communicating so that you can build that trust and rapport with anyone and connection.
I could see that'd be really important when you're selling something strategically, or you've got a great idea for an organisation, but there's quite a lot of people involved in the decision making. Yeah, and I think a mistake a lot of people make because they think everyone's the same, and the fact that this worked with this person's going to work with this person, and actually it could be complete opposite, right? You could actually sink the deal because of these two people and the different way they approach things.
For sure. I actually did some work with a real estate agent the other day, and she's a real bubbly, really a people person. But she had to do a pitch to someone that was really straight to the point. So she had to adapt her communication style, and it wasn't about her. She said, this is going to take 15 minutes. Actually, I'm going to get it over and done with 10. And straight away, he loved that. So everything in life is a negotiation. We're negotiating all day, every day. If you want someone to say yes to you, it's a negotiation. So it's actually understanding how people make decisions.
It's interesting. Some people, I've had similar conversations, and some people say, well, that you're being manipulative. You're taking advantage of your training and what you know to manipulate people to do things they don't want to do. And my philosophy is the opposite. It's like, well, it's actually called influence. And what it is it's helping someone communicate the way they communicate. So what you say makes sense, doesn't get taken the wrong way. Have you heard that before? Have you heard of people sort of say, "Oh, Natalie, that sounds a little bit manipulative," or what's the difference between being manipulative and being influential?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and you've got to really dig people. You've got to really genuinely and authentically want to understand that other person. So whoever you're negotiating with, the key, a big misconception is that you have to be a good talker, where really it's the opposite. You have to be a good listener. You have to be curious. You have to ask questions. What is it that they want? So whether you're negotiating with a suicide bomber on a bus, or negotiating with a teammate, or your leader, or your daughter, it's finding out what is it that they want, and it's knowing what's driving them. So when you know what they want and what's driving them, you can change their outlook and ultimately change their decision making.
It's a similar theme to one of the podcasts we did earlier today, where it was listen to understand. Is the core. You got listen to understand the person, but also genuinely, have that desire to understand. Because I think most people can pick up that you're turning it on, I guess, if you want a very expression, that if you're pretending like you care to sell them something or whatever, that's when it falls into manipulation, and it comes to intent, really underlying intent. So based on, you had the time on the ship having, lunch with a seatbelt on.
Sorry, Sean, just to go back to that intent. So can you pick a psychopath? Can you pick out a sociopath or psychopath really quickly?
Who, Sean or I?
You. I know Sean can. No. Can you, Natalie? Is it because some people just know, they're on game all time, right?
Yeah.
Is there a few tricks to? I've certainly seen a few in my working with some organisations. Yeah. Is there a trick or a trait that?
Well, it comes down to those codes and patterns. When it's finding when you meet someone who's genuine and authentic, they don't have to know it all. Especially in your game, when you're dealing with leaders, is the best leader is someone that says, "Hey guys, I don't know it all. I'm happy not to be an expert in everything," and that's when you rely on your team. So I think, to answer to your question, when someone is trying to be something that they're not, it's really obvious, and we've all got this skill. This is not. This is a skill that can be learned. It's just really understanding human behaviour, understanding what motivates someone, understanding when they're authentic, but just by the questions that they ask, the topics, what they're into, the topics that they talk about.
I think you're right too. I mean, it's definitely a learnt skill. It's something that I was completely oblivious to, when I was younger, but probably over the last 15 years, having developed that greater understanding of self, being able to then see it reflected in other people, the ability to pick up whether someone is, full of it or not, becomes easier as you learn and look for those signals and patterns that really can support that, your understanding of what their intent really is, whether it's a positive or a negative one. So yeah, coming back to your journey, you've, as I said, you're eating lunch, you've got your seatbelt on because it's so rough and everything. How long did you stay involved there?
You end up with Maccas in your lap, like I do when I try to eat in the seatbelt.
Trying to drive in the car. What happened next? So where did you go to next from that experience? What was the next part of your journey?
Yeah, from there, I got off the big boats down the Southern Ocean and ended up in the smaller marine unit of what's Border Patrol now. So any patrol, I could be ended up in Cairns, off TI, Gove, Darwin, Weipa, and they were short deployments, so 3-4 weeks at the time, on a 38-metre Bay class vessel. So illegal narcotics, illegal immigration, illegal fishing as well, and doing boardings as well, but shorter deployments. So from there, I ended up in a customs operational unit down in Brisbane. So we would, do some cool stuff. Whenever we got some intelligence that something was happening, we would go and sort it out or go and check it out. And from there, I guess I had an opportunity to go over to the UAE, to the Middle East, so for a couple of years, but ended up taking 2 years off customs and ended up being over there for 8 years, which we didn't see coming, actually, my husband and I.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. Sorry, I'm going to hit the rewind button just a little bit because fascinating how timing works out. I was in Brisbane on Monday, and my best mate from school is in the CIB and works in the drug anti-drugs part of the Queensland. I don't know the detail. I probably shouldn't say it anyways in case they find him. But it was really, really fascinating getting the insights from him into that world, which none of us see. A lot of the contraband and drugs coming in from Papua New Guinea, out from Mexico, all through how porous that Queensland border is. And I said to him, mate, does it not just feel like a relentless effort where you never get to the end? Is there ever a destination for what you do? How did you feel like in that? That's like a war, right? That kind of never ends.
Yeah, it's a tough one, actually, because the government stance, and actually in my recruitment, I remember distinctly them saying, you're going to be faced with some really tricky decisions. When you board a vessel and those illegal immigrants, whether it's illegal drivers or legal immigrants, let's use that example, when they've come from destitute, they've given everything for a better life, and here you are turning them away. How are you going to go? Predominantly as a female, you're more empathetic than the average bloke is. How are you going to go? And it's really hard because you do feel for those people. You do feel that they're just, the drug runners, the importations, they're just the end of the line. But if we don't do our job, well, back then, the country won't be the way it is right now. There's got to be those people on that front line that do the hard boardings and turn those boats away and torch those boats to send a message back to the syndicate that you can't illegally fish or bring drugs in. It's just one by one because, you're right. If, the moment we torch one boat, another boat will get built. But it's if we're not there, who knows what Australia's borders or Australia will look like.
I guess there's a big disadvantage in being the largest island on the planet. And a lot of that coastline, after traveling around it, if for a year, it's such a big place that it's amazing we can, I suppose, protect that border to the extent that we can. So clearly you would have seen some challenging things, some interesting things. What was one of the strangest things that you saw when you were in that role, when you were out there on the water, boarding boats? What were some interesting things or strange things that you saw?
Oh, lots. Look, I guess one thing that comes to mind is concealments. Where people can conceal things.
And probably how much they can conceal.
Yeah. Because when you're doing a boarding and, it's rough and it's not glamorous and you're in the bilge rolling around in oil and diesel and you've got your commanding officer in your ear saying, do not come back until you found that GPS so that we can prove that they knew where they were or that you've found that concealment we know that is there. It's not glamorous, but you know that you've searched you and your colleagues have searched every inch of the boat. You know where it could be.
the possibilities start to shrink to the no.
Yeah,
we've got to go there again. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to be a special person to be on the other side of that game, don't you? So obviously within this journey, Natalie, something's piqued your interest in human behaviour.
Yeah, right? It has, yeah.
What was that?
Look, I think human behaviour is it can be beneficial to everyone. It can, like I said, you can use it in business. You can use it to be a better wife, better partner, better family member, a better friend. When you can really understand why people do what they do, it just opens up a whole new ball game.
Did you see some stuff sometimes and just think, what the fuck, mate? What are What on earth has
Yeah.
got you to your point in life where you are doing this right now, and you
Yeah.
and I have just met? It must be mind blowing.
Well, it's hard sometimes to tune off. Once those codes and patterns are, when you know that they're there, when you meet someone, it's really actually hard to tune off, because
Your poor husband.
yeah, I know. He gets analysed all the time, all the time. I guess you just become really curious in life. You get curious of, why that person is like that, or, why do they say that? What do they mean? Where did that come from? So it's just using it and being curious about people.
And in a non-judgmental way, though, in a way of seeking to understand, yeah?
Yeah, it's, I guess when I was over in the Middle East, we did some hostage negotiation training for their special forces over there. So I helped facilitate that training. And really, whether it's the hostage taker, or whether it's someone else that you're negotiating with, it's the same thing. You've just got to create that connection with that person. You've got to understand why they want what they want. So it's understanding what's driving them and understanding what it is that they want. And in the end, ultimately thinking that the way that they're getting is actually your way. So it's...
This is interesting, actually, now, because here you are, having done this in a European culture, we're Australians and we kind of all get each other. And now you're going into another culture and you're talking about human behaviour.
Yeah.
So what have you learned about the relationship between human behaviour and where you come from on the planet?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because language is not everything. I mean, everyone knows that communication is tonality, it's body language, and it's the content, it's the language we speak. So it's that connection you get with that person. So teaching hostage negotiation in Arabic, at times going through a translator, you never know whether the whole thing gets through, but it's creating that connection with that person. What is it that you want?
Yeah, when I left the military, I went to Afghanistan, and I obviously work with people who have similar background to yours or come from the regiment, and they travel the world managing hostage crises for insurers, for example. Spend a lot of time in Mexico, and it was really interesting to talk to those people and to talk to yourself, which is just very measured people, very unshockable, very knowing, and I think, because how many years now would you think you would have been sort of focused and curious about human nature and human behaviour?
Well, I reckon it definitely started, when I think about it, it's even when I was sea kayaking, taking people on little sea kayak trips around the Whitsundays. Back then, it was focusing on people and asking them lots of questions. I remember my friends used to always just say to me, Nat, you ask so many questions. And they said that right back in high school. It's just, I think when you're naturally really interested in people, you learn so much about human behaviour naturally. And then it was just a matter of just honing some of those skills right through. I think it was sort of, a natural attraction for me, understanding people. And then just refining it a little bit, and then knowing that it's a skill that now can be taught and shared with others.
So in this journey, you've been in the Middle East for a while.
Yeah.
Again, clearly the entrepreneurial bug has struck again, because you've taken what you've learned in this environment and you've transitioned into coaching and consulting. Where did you see that connection? And as an entrepreneur, how have you utilized these skills to start and grow your business?
Well, when I was over in the Middle East, it's I worked for both the British and the Australian governments, and when we decided to come back, my husband and I was actually coming back a mum, so I had a little one over there. Actually, over there in the Middle East, actually you guys will be blown away by this. There's 3 weeks maternity leave.
Almost as bad as Australia.
Yeah. I knew that'd be an important fact for you guys.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. So having a little one over there and working with the government, I was turning to when we go home, what am I going to do? The government agency I was working for, Attorney Generals, they actually said, look, go work for us. We've spent X amount of dollars on your clearances. You're an asset to us. But at that stage, driving down to Brisbane was going to be probably not something that I wanted to do. So moving back to the Sunshine Coast, I thought, what are some skills that I've got, some transferable skills that I can use in business? So obviously, running your own business, you have that flexibility. So I was looking for something that I could add value to. And it looked like that, teaching people the codes and patterns of human behaviour would be something that would morph into, what I'm doing today. And that's working with leaders and teams and businesses as well. So
what was it that got you comfortable with doing it? And again, I know my experience, and I'm not sure whether I explain it might put a connection there. I'm really nervous now about like negotiating and communicating at the right level. But I remember when I first saw an afterburn program and I saw one of my mates delivering it. That's the first time I'd ever seen anything which was like speaking at a corporate level. And it's like people like that. They do that stuff. And journey in the last 5 years and obviously forging a good strong friendship with Sean and seeing how much help people need to be their most effective version of themselves. How did you know that what you did would be transferable? Did you get curious about the industry? Was there a friend, or what were the steps that you took to transition out, or did you just go freestyle and it's this or sea kayaks again?
Yeah, all the boats.
Yeah.
I looked into coaching, so I think that was a foundation for me to get that groundwork and become a coach. So it's how do I put the skills that I've learned right through those natural skills of being able to negotiate and understand human behaviour and everything that I've done, put that into a saleable entity and who needs it. So I did some coaching tuition over a couple of years, went into business coaching, so helping startups and businesses at all levels, scale and grow, and really teaching them the basics, in addition to the business coaching of human behaviour, how to create rapport with your prospects, how to understand people's decision-making strategies or buying strategies from an authentic point of view. And then obviously leaders. I had an opportunity to work for an organisation that needed some leadership coaching. So went in with that model of teaching them the codes and patterns of human behaviour. And it sounds so intriguing, but it's just basic. It's awesome skills that once applied, you can apply it to every aspect of your life. So whether it be business or personal.
I absolutely. One of the things in my own journey, Natalie, is that seeing that same thing that I think I undervalued the skill set around understanding people and very much my own goals and driven largely by ego early on and all that sort of stuff. But I can honestly say that the capability of learning to understand people and really truly understanding them and actually caring has, and I've seen this same apply to my businesses in my Inner Circle program and other people I've mentored and coached over the years as well, is that by learning those skills, it as you said, it affects everywhere. It as a and again targeting small business owners, because that's where I operate primarily, and creating and maintaining an incredible team. Creating and maintaining great relationships with families, with your family, with your friends. It literally, you can get winning business with clients and maintaining longer relationships with those clients. It's all based on your ability to actually build not just rapport. And I think people think rapport is this thing you do to make a sale. It's genuine. It's genuine, deep level of rapport and connection with somebody. And the more you understand, I think it's a very undervalued skill, and more people need to learn it. More people need to be able to understand and read people's intentions, because it diffuses situations before they become a problem and things like that. So totally agree and see it in my own journey as well. So
just get out of yourself. Just get out of yourself. Get out of your own head. Look at that third person, I often think that that's kind of a thing, right? Like, imagine you or your best friend, not you. You know, what would you say to yourself when you get these emotional attachment to bad things, or why me? You know, how could this happen?
Yeah.
How do you maintain the balance, Natalie? Like, obviously, one of the issues about being insightful, one of the issues about seeing bad things in life. How do you maintain your own emotional connection with your family? You just have one child? Do you have a daughter or a son?
Yeah, I've got a daughter and I've got a couple of stepdaughters as well.
So how do you? I personally find sometimes I can become emotionally a bit disengaged from the situation because my life has led me to have all of these compartments.
Mm.
How do you make sure that you stay emotionally connected as well as having that objectivity?
Yeah, it's that actually in itself is quite tricky. I think when you look at work as a box, or say your client as a box, when you finish with that, you've got to put the lid on. Not from a point of view that I don't care about them anymore, but for you to be able to do that sort of work when you're serving clients, for it to be sustainable and for you to be able to tune off at the end of the day and go into normal life, home life, you've got to be able to put the lid on the box, and just I guess it's just, you know, reconnect with family and know that it's different compartments. And actually, it's a big thing, actually being able to tune off. How do people tune off at the end of the day when you've got high performers, leaders that are all the time thinking? What sort of message does that
suck
send?
the life out of you and will take everything that you give them to recharge themselves and
yeah,
because they're just as curious as you are, right?
Yeah, it's a good point, because you have to have purpose outside work. Whatever you do for a living doesn't define you. You've got to have a passion, a purpose outside work. You've got to have a reason to finish work. So whether that be your family, whether it be the gym that you're going to afterwards, the walk with your mate, I think it's really important to actually have something outside work that you love.
Going through that similar journey into the coaching and mentoring space, what I found initially when I got into it was I would clone the monkey that was on that person's back and put it on mine, and then the next one and the next one. And so I ended up having 10 monkeys of somebody else's. And then I would just be like, and just collapse under the weight of it. And as you said, it's about, you can help them try and tame the monkey, but give it back. You know, as you said, close the lid on the box. That's their journey. You can support it, but you don't have to carry it with you everywhere, because it will actually bleed into all other aspects of your own life as well.
Yeah. Do you know, Sean, the first time for me, over COVID, I actually found it really hard. I reached out to a mate for some support, actually, because I said, for the first time, I feel as though every client that I have, every business coaching client, every leader I'm chatting to, everyone's got really tragic stories. Their circumstances are tragic at the moment, and they're in damage control. And I just found that what you just said, everything was compounding, and I couldn't put the lid on the boxes. So I think it's really important. We have to be able to do it. For us to do our job and go from client to client to client and serve 300% when you're with them, you've got to be able to put those lids on. So it's
I'll mirror that exactly. So between kind of March and July, we ran an initiative inside our program called the Stronger Together Initiative, and basically we turned our focus from outwards and stopped growing and just turned it inwards to support everyone through that. And that was a bloody difficult time. Same thing, because there were so many boxes that were open, they were so heavy, each one. It was very hard to close all of them. And I did, and as you did, you reached out to a friend for support. I think as coaches and mentors and any supporter of other people, you need to also have your support network. And without my support network, I think it would have broken me, because it was such an intense, 4 or 5 months there to support people to shift their mindset to be realistic but optimistic, and not sit in a pessimistic place. And despite some of my clients being closed for 5 months in Melbourne because of the industry they're in, and having zero income, and having to sell assets to survive and all that sort of stuff. But it
was
really taught me more about. Sorry?
it was really tough, and it continues to be, you know, a really challenging time for so many.
Yep.
So for you, Sean, what did you do specifically over that time? How did you make sure that you were okay each time?
I've done a lot of work with a good friend of mine, Sand Mew, who's an energy worker. She does a lot of, you know, clearings, and I've learnt a few skills around how to actually let go of that energy that you take on, that monkey that you're cloning and putting on your back, and that's actually helped. But I also lent on, you know, 4 key people that I have in my life to just be my sounding board to help. You know, they help me by turning the valve, and that overload of gas comes out. You know, it helps drop that level. And it just is realizing that even though as a, you know, a mentor, coach, all sorts of stuff, highly experienced in business and all of that, I also need other people to mentor and coach me. So I've got peer mentors, I've got coaches in different areas, you know, always not dropping the self-care, you know, things like massage when we could, obviously is something I do consistently, chiro, you know, exercise, and I increase my level of exercise. Say that again.
You give massages? You never let.
No, not giving, but I'm better.
Oh, come on, Sean.
I'm better at stopping.
Down the road.
Bit of both. Yeah. It's all about giving, Shawnee.
It is.
About giving. Being selfless.
But the self-care piece, I had to really, really focus on diet, sleep, exercise, and nurture, because I could feel my battery just being drained, not deliberately drained, but just because of the weight of everyone else's situations. And obviously that translates across to the, you know, your career, the things you've seen, the people we've had on the podcast that have seen other incredible, you know, horrendous things, you know, with yourself, Boo. At times it can get too heavy. You need to ask for someone to help you carry it.
Oh yeah, last year got smashed. Speaking events, like I think I managed to land the perfect trifecta: a speaking business, own a hotel, and an aviation magazine.
Yeah.
Talk about throw a grenade into the mix. But yeah, and it's been good. Sean, you've been awesome. Obviously, helped through that. We created this whole environment to have these conversations on the back of it, because we thought, hey, it's kind of important, and it's important for people to hear that successful people also feel pain and also need help. There's nothing magical.
No, we're not on a pedestal. We're the same. No. We just have different experience. You know.
Yeah, it's, you know, as business owners, we've got to look after ourselves, because we're no good to anyone, are we?
Particularly small business owners. And I think people underestimate the pain here. You've got the big end of town that is making money hand over fist right now.
Yeah. The
smaller operators, there's a lot more risk there. And there's, as you said, Sean, there's people have been selling assets and surviving. So even as we come out of this, I still think there's a lot of hurt to come, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to save all that money back. It's going to be hard to get back to the nest egg that got you through. We are rebaselining a lot of businesses right now in the SME space.
Yeah, it's a lot of those small businesses are having to totally remodel the way that they served their clients previously. It's being that, you know, innovator, taking new initiatives. It's remodeling their business, like just what you guys have done.
And what people have got to realize is that you've got to embrace and accept the fact that it's changed. I think what I see the businesses that are struggling is they are still trying to hold on to what it was before. They are resisting it. They're blaming other people. They're screaming about politicians doing this, that, and the other. And it's like, you can't actually change that. Just focus on what you can control and start the creative flow. What else could we do? You know, as I said, Boo and I met Boo originally when he did an Afterburners thing about 5 years ago with a group that I was involved in. And then, you know, we continued to connect over the years, and he came and then did one for our Inner Circle group. And we were like, we've got something to share. I think people need to hear conversations that are just from everyday people through to, you know, we had Tony Nash, you know, the founder of Booktopia, on a few weeks ago as well. And he just listed his Booktopia company on a stock exchange. So, but everyone has the same stories. Everyone has the same challenges, the pain points and all of that as well. And we all learn stuff along the way. And I suppose where you are now versus, you know, being a bright-eyed teenager, what would you go back and give yourself as a lesson from what you've learnt over your life?
Luck very rarely exists. And maybe I'm a cynic, but I see it as opportunities come past us all the time, thousands a day. It's just there's only a few of us that grab the opportunities. So you've got to see those opportunities and grab them and say yes, work out how later. And when you take those opportunities, it just opens up a door. And then that door opens up another door. And that door opens up another door. So who would have thought that, a little sea kite guide, a sea kite owner, paddling around the Whitsundays, could end up doing hostage negotiation courses or, being a behavioural profiler. So I wouldn't have picked it. But what I do know is that I look for opportunities. I was going to say I look for adventure. Maybe, back there.
But that's your mindset. Like you like to be challenged and curious, and that subsequently means adventure. And it's interesting when you talk about luck. Someone put it very eloquently one day is you've got to get up early and watch a lot of sunsets to be lucky enough to see a beautiful one.
Yeah.
But if you're not getting up every morning and you're not doing it, it's never going to happen. That's a given.
Yeah. So
cool.
We've got to focus on what you want, not what you're not getting, not what you don't want. It's what we focus on is what we get. It's really simple. So if we want something different, we've got to focus on that. So and you've got to take some risks. If you want opportunities to open up, a risk is just something that you don't know the answer to, something that is uncertain. And most of us say, I haven't done that before. I'm not going to give it a go. But I'd go back to, mum and dad just drilled into us. It was just part of me growing up. Do something you haven't done before these holidays. This weekend, do something you haven't done before. So for me, it was just ingrown into me to take some little risks, and therefore the opportunities open up. So that is my message to everyone in business, people in life in general. Just look for the opportunities and just grab them. Just say yes and work out how later.
No, I think it's so true and so accurate. And Nat, you'll see within the people we speak to here, that recurring theme just constantly resurfaces and that when you take a lot of risks in life, you eventually come to the point where you realize that nothing's really that risky. It's just you got to think about it or prepare a bit more or be prepared. That I kind of get why people do rock climbing now without ropes on, because you don't realize the reserves that are in you until you put yourself out there. And we've got so much latent capacity as a human being, I think. And putting yourself out there, that's where the joy comes from, when you realize you can do something more than what you thought. I'm too old for all that stuff now, obviously. So, but I think that's a really awesome point to finish off with, Natalie. Thanks so much for sharing your insights. And hopefully now, with COVID kind of on the way out, we'll start to see some of your clients, and all of us will see a bit of a lift in the world. I can already feel that positive energy starting to happen again, and no doubt, Nat, the people that listen to this podcast, there's so much value in reaching out to you and learning how to be on the other side, how to be in the other person's shoes. And I'm fascinated to go and explore a little bit more what these codes are and see how I can decode Sean in the debrief after this podcast.
Sean's easier to work out.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There's the gauntlet, mate.
You've got to get over yourself. That is the main thing. Get over yourself. It's not about you. Nothing's about you. It's just be curious about other people.
She's not talking about you, mate. This is general.
I gathered that. But no, I really appreciate you taking the time now. We'll put links in the show notes and stuff to people who want to get in touch with you and maybe explore some of the things that you do as well.
Cool.
And that wraps up another episode of The Few. Thank you to our partners, Afterburner, for team building, development and alignment. We understand now how important it is to have the right people around you. Get them on board with where you want to go. Momentum Media, the largest industry publisher in the country, connecting your business to the Australian community. ICMI, Australia's premier speaker bureau, representing the few that do fulfill their life's purpose. And finally, Sean's Inner Circle, the business coaching organisation for small and medium enterprises looking to make that next step. Thanks again for listening in and downloading today. Please leave a review on whatever platform you are currently listening to this podcast, and reach out to our partners who can help you make the transition to the few.
Thanks, guys. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for the chat.
No worries.
Thanks,
Thank
Natalie.
you.
Take care.
See ya.
We'll be right back.